June 20th Templeton Advisory Committee to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we do have a quorum because we have 4 of our 5. For anybody out there watching, we still need 2 new members.
2.
So first thing is meeting minutes.
Yep.
From our May 30th. Amy, do you want to?
Oh, thanks.
I looked
have
at
it
them online.
electronically, but
Any comments?
The only one comment I have after reading it is on page 2. It says the motion passed, but it doesn't have what the yeses and nos were.
which one's that one?
Which
The
one?
This one
invoice
here.
for the pre-town meeting? Oh, okay, I can go back and watch that and add it. I believe we all passed it, but I'll double check according to the recording, and I can add that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Which one are you talking about?
On the
This one,
invoice for the pre-town meeting?
on motion, yes and no,
Oh.
motion passed. I mean, it would be better if you just put down what the yeses and nos are, actually a breakdown as to who yes and who no.
Yeah, I think I did that on the other one, so I just must have missed that one. Right, so you want me to put it like on the motion,
No, right here, you got it right there, yeses and nos.
but I didn't write who had it.
You
So
didn't
like
say-
on the
you
other
didn't-
ones I had, yes.
Right, you said, right,
Okay.
you got that. Everything on the other ones were good.
Okay.
And I went, oh, I bet you she didn't catch it.
I probably, yeah, I didn't catch it. All right, so I highlighted that, so I'll add who voted there under the invoice for the pre-town meeting, and I can send those back
Okay.
out.
Wow. I forgot to back this down.
I'm gonna, let's see.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of May 30th as written with the correction on page 2 showing how many yeses and no votes when it was passed.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? No discussion? Amy?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, I got the, well, Jeff sent it to me, but hopefully everybody's getting the emails. So anything that's sent to the advisory committee, I have it set up so everybody should get it. So if
Yeah, I'm
Carter,
getting it twice. Getting a lot of them twice.
because they're sending them to you personally, and then,
Advisory committee's copied,
yeah.
so then anything that goes to advisory committee also comes to us again?
All right, let me.
Is there any
I'll-
way to avoid that?
Yeah, just by telling them to send everything just to advisory committee, and
Yeah,
then he'll get it.
and
I'll,
leave
I'll
the
work on,
individuals out.
I'll send,
Awesome.
I'll send Carter an email and have
Thank
him
you.
advise his staff that, if everybody's getting the emails,
It's, to me, it's not a problem getting it twice. I can always kill one.
Yeah.
okay.
No, I just wanted to note that I was.
That way there.
Yeah,
that
I
way
get
there-
them
Twice,
twice too.
yeah.
and
That
it-
way
it
there,
is
we
good.
know we're getting it.
Right,
To
and
me,
it does get
that's my
cumbersome.
that's my thought. I mean, it's up to everybody else as to what they want to
And,
do.
if anybody wants the advisory committee email and password stuff, let me know. I'll provide it. I think that it's a committee email, so everybody should have, access to that account. I
Did Jeff
have it
ever
set
give
up.
you the password for the old
Yeah.
email? Because
Yeah,
that's got
yeah.
some history on it.
No, I have that.
Which, oh, you
Yeah,
do,
I have
okay,
that. Yep.
okay. That's important to have because there's some stuff there that we're actually doing now.
It's right there. Yeah, no, and anything from about, anything from pre-last year, it's in the archive folder. So if anybody wants that, send me an email and I will send you the information. Okay, so the budget versus actuals, we did not get that again.
Yeah,
I don't recall seeing it, did we?
we got it on June
6-3.
3rd. We got the April one on June 3rd.
Yep.
I also have the the March one, which was given to us on April 29th.
You said June 3rd?
Yes.
I'm not sure what the hell's going on.
Let's put it this way, it was dated on the 3rd, whether or not it was sent on the 3rd. Maybe it was on the 4th.
No, it was sent on June 3rd at 10:05 a.m.
Oh, okay,
Who does that
Looking
come
at it,
from?
it came from Kelly.
Kelly,
Okay.
yeah.
That's good, it's still in my inbox.
Oh. There it is. I'll look over it real quick. Does anybody have any comments on it?
Do you want me to start, or you want everybody else to have a chance?
I'll type.
Deb, do you have any comments?
I don't.
Amy?
No, no.
I do, I have a question
Okay.
that maybe the chairman can ask. It's on the first line, transfer out to other funds. I tried finding that account number to find out what it was, and I don't quite understand this transfer out to other funds. And, because I looked at the list of accounts on the budget, and it doesn't list that, so that was my question.
Yep, no, it's a
Okay.
good question.
The other thing is, I'm quite concerned about the whole process of us receiving these. What do I mean by that? Well, let's go back a couple of months when we were requested to end up having an emergency reserve for the assistant to end up being in the office and doing work. I look at some of these reports, and hopefully they're up to date. And if they are up to date, I have another concern. My concern is, here we have an April report, which was given to us on June 3rd. We're sitting in June 20th. We haven't seen the May report. And the April report, if you look at it, the percent variation as far as what they've used should be around 83%, some of them. And if you look, there are accounts that the percentage is really low. If this is true, per se, like we got one for supplies for selectmen, I'm just gonna pick that
Yep.
particular one,
Sure.
okay? It says 43%.
Okay.
I would expect it to be a little bit more than that.
Okay, so I would ask you to consider this. With not having them develop basically a spend plan, a month-by-month spend plan, I don't think that you can arbitrarily sit there and say, okay, if they had a yearly budget of $12,000, that it's $1,000 spent per month. So I think that's a part of the problem when you can look at this information, but to me, really all it does is the allocated, how much is expended, and how much they have left. And then it starts, as we get to the June one, once in July we get to June one, then we sort of start seeing, okay, what didn't they spend?
Well, I
And that's going
understand
to free cash.
understand what you're
But what I
saying.
mean is, like, we don't know, if in May, the selectmen have gone out and spent $500 on supplies for whatever reason, or since this data is so old, I don't think that you can just take it and say, okay, 83% of the year is gone, so they should all be expended at 83%.
Right, and we don't know how much of that is actually designed
Well,
to be expended at the end.
I have to differ with you, because we're actually paying salaries. 83% of a salary by this time should be paid out.
In that case, in the case of a salary where it's a known,
Yep.
I would say, I would somewhat agree with you, but not knowing, did someone have to take unscheduled leave that they didn't get paid for? There's a lot of variables that go into it, but I wouldn't disagree with you when it comes to like salaries for, say, we'll just use the accountant for the accountant or whatever,
Yep.
that, they should have worked so much and then so, but again, this is why I've always asked for a spend plan. Because then we can see, are they tracking to their spend plan?
Yeah, because the one that you use 84%, over 84% of the salary's been used by the accountant.
Right.
I mean,
And there's a possibility with the accountant that might even be a little high because the assistant had to come in and do more work while the accountant was out, on medical leave. And,
well, the reason I'm concerned about this is there's some that should, I have to agree that there are some accounts that will probably be different than the 83%. But they won't be so different as to end up being 4%, as an example, on one of them. Looking at some others,
which one did you say was 4%?
intergovernment, that's raises.
What page is that on?
Okay, but when do the raises take effect and?
Well, for the amount of raises that we're giving, they should have, at least, at this particular time, should have already taken place.
So in the case of the intergovernmental, is that raises for, like, light and water and all that stuff?
No, light and water is separate.
Okay.
Light and water
Who
and
would the
sewage.
intergovernmental be for?
Intergovernment would be any other departments other than the selectmen, or
so-
maybe even the selectmen.
So does it have anything to possibly do with the fact that they're just wrapping up the collective bargaining and those raises are being determined and they're being back paid and?
The departments I'm talking about are all right within, town hall.
So here's what I would say to you. If you have specific questions on different departments and funding lines, send me an email and I will send them to the department head and, or I'll send them to Carter and ask him to find out the information from the department head of why. But without having May's data, I mean, May could be completely different. Probably will be completely different.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it up now, is to take and end up saying, hey, if this is close, then we have an issue.
I understand what you're saying,
Yep.
and I fundamentally, I don't really disagree with you, but like I said,
Yep. Because come May, I mean, we should have received May already. Here we
We
are, the
should have.
20th of June. My concern is that, okay, we've got a lapse in time,
yeah,
quite a ways. We should be getting May already. If we now get May in 10 days, folks, it's the end of the year.
Yep. Nope, you're right.
And at the end of the year, we got another 15 days for her to take and end up
Yep.
catching all this
I
up.
mean, without going year by year, doing an analysis of a monthly expenditure of each
Well-
different department.
The reason I bring it up, I've seen this year to year,
Okay.
and month to month, and this is why I'm concerned is
Okay.
if this is true, we have too much money. If it's not true and she's lagging behind, then why? Those are questions I
Again,
have.
you don't have bills come in, and I think there's so many variables that I don't know that we can really answer. Amy, do you have any question on that?
No, I'm totally listening to everything. And I agree with both of you. I worry that we could be potentially in dangerous, obscure water, but I also think
Yeah.
because there's no spend plan, you can't really say. Some of these expenditures may be designed to go out at the end of the year.
Right.
I just talked to somebody from community preservation, and she said exactly that. She said, we've got to spend this money, and we have 2 weeks to spend it, and they spend the majority of their budget goes in the end.
Yep. I mean, we're talking about end-of-year transfers. We have till the 15th, we have 25 days. And if this is incorrect, and not, some of the department heads
Well,
should, number one, should be keeping track of it
Yeah,
themselves.
no, you're right.
Number two is, if this is incorrect, then how do we know we got end-of-year transfers? I mean, it's not only me, it's
So I
the
got-
selectmen
we
and the.
got an email from Carter
Yep.
saying, as of right now, there are no end-of-year transfers.
Yep.
And we'll discuss what we might end up having to do through the 15th of July. But right now, they don't have any.
Yep.
Um,
Well, you hear my concern.
Yes, I absolutely
But
hear,
I-
it, and I
I-
understand. Unfortunately, when you have data that's a month and a half old, it's hard to analyze it. It's hard, what is the fact, okay? What
Well,
if-
you can look at it as a time period it is, but not necessarily up
Yeah.
to
No, I
days.
understand what you're saying, I don't disagree with you at all.
I'm stating some concerns.
See, like, for example, personnel, they should know that whatever the office is, we spend $7,000 a month on personnel. I'm just making those numbers up, because they know people work so many hours, and so each month, they could create a spend plan for that. And I think some of the other stuff they could too. Supplies,
Supplies are a little bit different.
Supplies a little bit different, because you say, oh, well, gosh, we need paper. I would like to see everybody in town hall combine their supplies. I don't see why they can't. They could come up with some kind of tracking system. They do it for the printer where the people have to put a code in,
Yep.
so,
Believe it or not, this has been talked about
I know.
since 2013 of having a central procurement, and everybody draws out of it.
I know. So,
This is way too long.
right. I mean, like, for example, you know, if you take the selectmen for their legal, you don't know. I mean,
No, you can't predict
They
that.
could be, right, so there's a lot of stuff that's not predictable.
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
That's my main concern, as you heard,
Okay.
is that we're going into the year.
I will send an email, request what that transfer is, because you're right, that's kind of a new thing, and what that transfer out.
What does it mean? I mean,
Yeah,
that's just,
no, I agree, it's weird that it's,
just a clarification.
yeah,
If it's valid, I don't have a problem with it.
And if we can get May's report, I think that'll give us a clearer picture.
Well,
you know,
right.
Like
if
some
we-
of those percentages may
But
change.
we should have May by this time of the month already.
Has there ever been a deadline before where this was due
Yes.
to
we're
certain
supposed to
parties?
get it by
The 10th of the month.
the 10th, yeah, I think
Okay.
that's right. And I don't know why we haven't got it for this month, I don't know, is the Board of Selectmen got it?
Okay,
I've already made that inquiry to one of the selectmen and told
Because that's in
we got April because of his inquiry.
It's in the financial policy that the selectmen, department heads, and advisor are supposed to get a monthly
Okay.
expenditure.
I will
That's correct.
email Kelly and see if there's some kind of issue with her system or whatever.
Thank you.
Right. Any other comments on budget versus actuals? Okay, next, I got the VADAR invoice. I sent the woman an email, let her know that I was the chair, that we were gonna discuss it at this meeting. It's $700, I don't, so, do we wanna pay it?
Do you want me to make a motion? I'll make a motion
Well, you
on
don't
it.
have to make a motion yet. Let's discuss whether, does anybody, use it? And then we'll make a motion on which way we wanna go.
Well, we talked about this a couple months back and
Yeah.
nobody was using it.
Right. So if you'd like to make a motion, if no one has a,
I make a motion that we notify VADAR that we will no longer need the read-only access. And by the way, this is part of the cutting process that we'll have to go through on the budget.
haven't got to that yet, but you're right.
But this saves us $700, and we can talk about that later, but that's,
Right.
so my motion is sticking end up notifying the VADAR person that we no longer need the read access, and we're not, going into next year for that.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
can you remind me again what the VADAR access gave us? Like what does that allow us to see?
It lets us go into, like, all these accounts on BVA
Okay,
and take a look at, even underneath, like under personnel, you can actually go in and purchase the services and actually see what the account, what's under that account.
okay.
We really have not done that per se.
And they're giving us the information, because Kelly's
They're giving
sending
us the
that.
upper level.
Okay.
The other thing that I've stated in the past is that the bylaw calls for them to be able to give us that data when we request it.
Right, would they have a certain amount of time? If we want more detailed data,
Right.
we can make a request, and I forget the exact amount of
5
time, but I
days.
think, you're right, okay, it was 5 days, I thought it was 5 or 7.
Yep.
Barring anything that, they're, just don't have the time, they should be able to give us that data. So, I personally have not used VADAR. I don't,
I'm comfortable if we can request that data and we haven't used it and we know cuts are coming.
Yep.
Amy?
I'm comfortable.
I think
Yeah,
the only
I'm
one that
agreed,
used
I
it
think.
initially was Lee.
Yeah,
And I think he just took a look at it,
I agree with you. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what he did.
and don't wanna speak for him whether he's not here. Any other discussion?
No.
So I have a motion on the floor to, not pay and terminate our, access to VADAR.
Yes,
Correct.
Amy?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Well?
yes.
And I'm a yes. I will send, I think her name was Mary Beth, an email. And, we're gonna, during the new business, we're gonna discuss some things and some cuts we're gonna have to make. As of right now, next on the agenda is transfer requests. We do not currently have any, pending transfers. As of right now. So I don't see a need to discuss that any further. Narragansett revised school budget. So right now, they had a meeting. There is some question on whether it was a legal meeting, that they did not properly post the meeting. So I believe that the town administrator is gonna go back them and ask them to redo the meeting. We'll have to wait to see what happens with that. And I was trying to look, I don't know how much they revised their budget by, or if they just voted for the same budget.
No, they
No, it
revised
came
it.
down.
I thought they came down.
Yes, they came down. If you'd like to know that
If you
figure.
have the numbers, that'd be
Yes,
great.
I have the figure. The overall budget for Templeton came down to $6,978,408.
Okay. And then I think we
And we
asked for like 6.49 or something like that.
we
Or they
budgeted,
originally.
we budgeted $4,491,070,
Okay.
or a difference of $487,338. Why I seen some numbers of 37, the number different, I don't know, because when I looked at the actual FY20 budget and I did the calculations against what we received from the school budget, I came up with the 338, and I see 337.
That could be a
Benson.
rounding, that could be a rounding error.
I have that as a question.
Okay.
We shouldn't be, $1, I'm sorry, my wife was an accountant, and I'm on that too. We shouldn't have a dollar difference.
I don't disagree with that.
Well, I
but,
think
mean,
there's a policy of lots of rounding, so you just gotta relax with that.
I understand what you're saying, but it's probably a rounding error.
Because it's in the ones column, I don't think it's that big a deal. If it were over a couple places, I might worry about it, but.
By the way,
It could be the
if
program
we
that
had
they use, too.
received this earlier, like before town meeting, and we had cut 200,000, we could have probably gone for a $250,000 override, but that's,
Well,
I mean, we did.
Shoulda,
and that
coulda,
only,
woulda.
Yeah,
that
I
only
mean, we did
represents
discuss it.
74, that
Right.
represents 74 cents, by the way.
Okay.
Right, but we
And
can't play that
unfortunately,
game now.
In order to get to that budget, the school has had to make some tough decisions, and there are people that were laid off, so I don't know how many, and I know Dr. Castavant did not want to have to go that, and they're looking at all different possibilities. So before we can really fully discuss the revised budget, I think we need to wait till we get word from the Board of Selectmen that we have a true certified number for them. If they have to go back and vote, that starts the 45-day clock again.
Yep.
So, I guess more to come on that. I mean, I appreciate the fact that the school department went and found, almost $500,000.
Which is surprising
A
be-
little over $500,000. Well, I think it was tough.
No, which is surprising because, as the administrator said, has stated in different areas, where the superintendent had stated a couple of figures of of 200 and, I think it's 37,000 or 247, which wouldn't be too bad for us to take and make some cuts, and everybody would be happy. We would feel some pain on both sides, but this is kind of twice that amount.
Right. So.
It's unfortunate.
I did watch the Board of Selectmen,
Well, we had an opportunity, as I stated months ago, and we blew it as a community.
I won't disagree with that. I think that we could have done a better job.
That's what I'm
of-
saying.
I think they,
So you came up with a number
Yes.
of 487,338.
Right.
But when you look at the proposed cuts that Carter had sent, did everybody get that email this
Yes.
afternoon?
Yes, I was gonna talk about that.
Is that appropriate here,
Yeah,
or?
but sure.
Okay.
Because that's part of the whole process of the budget and how we're
Oh.
gonna fund it.
So, his numbers, when you add up all of the cuts, is 414,390.
Right.
That's correct.
So,
And what discourages
so
me
different?
the most is this. When you get an email that basically says, and I will read it, number 5, assuming from this moment that the budget is approved by STM, special town meeting, or the district meeting at the current desired
okay.
Narragansett school level, it means we need to cut 487,000 from the general fund.
Okay,
Even after the acceptable recalculation of the overlay reserve, we need cuts remaining 385,000. To give me a sheet that has more than the 385 is, to me, is unacceptable. That's bizarre.
there was a reason for that, though, he explained it, but I
I-
don't remember. Yes, he
I-
explained that at the meeting.
Do with, income. There was some change,
Right.
because the expenses were cut, some income was also cut.
So,
Yep.
cutting the expenses
just-
changed the
No,
revenue.
No, you're
projection.
correct. I remember when I was watching that here, and I don't remember
Explain
exactly
the-
what they
he
said.
explained
Yep.
the difference.
Okay. I do remember that.
But again, for right now, I don't wanna say talk we're talking not really in generalities, but until we're presented with the no-kidding, school budget, and then the approach that the Board of Selectmen wanna take to, rectifying any differences, it's kinda hard to, we're just gonna speculate at this time.
Did you all get this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, I'm looking at it right now, so, and because I know that there's some contentious things of, I think there's an unfilled police officer position right now, not the one we wanted to add, but one, I think someone maybe just resigned, or whatever the case was, and I think their plan is to possibly not fill that position, and
Correct.
that'll be 100 and, so, and so I think that Carter came up with these cuts in about a day and a half, he and Adam. So I think through the next few weeks, they're gonna be really, okay, where can we really cut, and what
They're not in
pain?
stone. These are not.
I'm sorry?
These.
They're
these
not in
sheets told me
stone.
They're not in stone. There's just his
Right.
ideas, and I've sent my thoughts to him last night, emails about different ways, and the other selectmen,
Yeah.
next Wednesday, we're gonna kick it around again.
Right. So, and I think if you look at the far right column, I think really, when they say backfill risk, I think that what they're really talking about is, what's the risk of us needing to backfill that fund? For example, if they reduce town council by $10,000, there's a good chance that we're gonna have to backfill that, we can cut it now, but like snow and ice, and I think that's the example you used, we're gonna have to pay it. So,
Well, let me make one thing very clear. The cut for advisory. I'm gonna stand here and shout and let you know that cuts from the emergency reserve are not acceptable to me nor should they be to anybody else.
Okay, so.
Whether they be $1 or a couple thousand
Okay,
dollars.
Okay, so what they said last night, that they wanted us to discuss it as a committee. So once they come to us and ask us to say, we'd like you to take this much of a cut, it's really gonna be up to us where we give them money. The fact is, we're gonna cut into the emergency fund. I mean, if everybody else is cutting, we're gonna have to pay our fair share. I understand your point about cutting the emergency fund. That is such a nebulous thing of, I don't know if I'm gonna need it. I could say, well, take it all, that's fine, because we didn't use any of it this year, as far as we know, we're not gonna use any. But next year, we might use double the amount, so it's such a hard thing to really quantify, because you don't, you can't predict the future.
Well, cutting into the highway department with the amount of money that they did,
So what I would like to do is, before we really overanalyze this,
well, the
Let's-
reason I
well-
bring it up, okay, is that if that cut stands, okay, per se, the emergency reserve is
I
their
understand.
kickback.
I understand, but see, what I would like to do, and as a committee, see, I'd like to wait till they put a formal proposal in front of us, if you will, of these are the cuts, and then we can offer the department heads to come in if we think that there's something, or if they all say, yeah, we can absorb that. If we're concerned about a certain area, talk to that department head and what they think that impact's gonna be.
I don't know that there's time for that.
There
No,
may
I don't
not
think
be.
so either.
There may not be.
And I think it's important for us to even give feedback and opinion here now, so that people watching this meeting back who aren't in the room
I have
can
to agree
hear
with
what
you.
we have to say. So, for example, maybe I'm super upset at the number laid out here, the potential cut for senior services.
Right.
Maybe that grinds me in a certain way, and I'd really like everyone to understand that at this point, just so it's sort of like on record.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
then that can be considered when the Board of Selectmen come together and when the town administrator, when they're all together, those are things that they have to think
See-
about, since I wasn't able to be at the meeting.
See, I'd like to take and
Okay.
see us go through here, look at some of these, and actually look at other issues within the budget and said, this is more appropriate overall as a cut versus, when you look at public safety, I think that's a little bit drastic on that. I think there should be less in public,
I-
and that aspect, where there could be cuts in other areas of the budget which don't affect the town if we cut those. And I'll give an example. Why are we supporting the town of Hubbardston with an accountant? Do we really need that when we're going through this and we have monies from public safety? I would rather see that we don't end up doing that.
We're not supplying it, though. You have two employees one's gonna go to full-time. They're gonna split their duties between here and Hubbardston. The way I understand it.
Yeah, it's costing us money.
It shouldn't be costing us money. If it is, then someone made a bad deal.
It is.
So, well, hold on.
Yep.
So they should have given a bill saying, okay, we're gonna have this much hours. Now, if we're having to pay benefits to somebody, Hubbardston should have absorbed that cost. So I have not seen the actual deal they made. I saw something in the deal they made. What was not in the calculations wasn't the fact that some of the salary, they didn't make a decrement of salary from Templeton paying to have Phillipston pay it. So, I would 100% disagree if they just pay for the hourly part and we pay for the benefits. No. If it costs $75,000 a year to have another person or to have the agreement like they want, then that part should, $75,000 additional, I'm just using that as a number, then that part should be paid by the town of Hubbardston. The town of Templeton should not pay one nickel above what we're paying right now. So if the town accountant's budget goes up X dollars, that should all be absorbed by the town of Hubbardston. And
It's not.
with Mr. Bennett here,
Hubbardston, first year of that agreement is paying Templeton $37,000.
okay,
Off the top of my head, I know there's $7,500 going to the town accountant as
That's
an
correct.
increase. A 19.5 hour employee now is going to 38 hours.
Okay,
The benefits for a full-time employee cost, I will conservatively say it's 25 grand. I think it's a little bit more, maybe closer to 27, but I go conservative on
sure,
25 grand.
okay,
Her salary went from, her salary plus her floating hours, I wanna say is around 21,000, something like that, 22.
Yep.
Yep.
And her salary full-time is going 40,
Almost
Oh, This
50,000.
is it here,
48-ish?
49, 70, 80?
Yep.
Yep,
48-ish or
49,780.
so that's like a $50,000 increase, or thereabouts, if you include the and Hubbardston is only paying 37.
So we're in the hole.
There's a negative of
21.
yep,
Almost
that's
22,000.
not acceptable. That is
That's-
absolutely not acceptable that we pay for services within the town of
And
Hubbardston,
the next
especially when we're having to
year-
cut our own services.
And if you wanna look at that IMA, I looked for it on the website. I found it looking at the April 24th Board of Selectmen's agenda.
Yep.
It's on there.
Okay, I will, I'll email Carter and
Either
ask
there
him
or
for a
May 8th,
breakdown.
because they did the Phillipston IMA with the dispatch.
Yep.
Yep.
And then they did the Hubbardston, and they're, it's either April 24th and May 8th, but I can't for the life of me which one is which date. But I know you can find both of them there, and you will see the figures for Hubbardston.
See, that's the type of, like, have to, with Amy, those are the type, that's the type of things that we should end up pointing out, is that we need to take and end up doing that versus some, I mean, you're talking about an increase here of $27,000 to us, where we could put $27,000
Towards, no, I
towards
100% agree with that.
something else.
Well, plus the benefit cost.
Yeah.
So you're talking more than 21.
Right, I'm just talking about
I
the.
mean, right, if the situation that we're facing now, if that was kind of a bad deal if the school, everything was straight,
Yeah.
it's still a bad deal,
No,
but
I-
it's easier to swallow.
Right.
But now, when you gotta start chopping Templeton employees and
Yep.
departments, services to the taxpayers, if that's a bad deal and it only benefits Hubbardston,
Right.
then it's a.
So,
Doesn't make
so
sense for
I
Templeton
will,
anymore.
I will email Carter and ask her for a breakdown, the explanation of the agreement, and
Yep.
if in fact the town is paying part of Hubbardston's bill, and with us facing potential
Well, his-
probable budget cuts,
Yep.
then that's not acceptable.
He has stated that it's a break even.
And I need him to explain that to us.
Like I said, either April 24th and May 8th.
Yep.
If you look at the selectmen's agenda, you can find those, but I don't know which one was on which date. But for those two dates, they're there. And you can
Okay.
see the 3-year dollar figures from Hubbardston for accounting. I think
Yes.
30
Well,
something,
and
40 something, and then 50-ish.
right, and if it's, is it acceptable that over a 3-year period, we break even? I'm not, with us facing budget cuts, I'm not sure that we have
No.
$20,000 that we can give them, if that's the number, to, you know, we wanna be good neighbors and help towns out, and I think that there's certainly
Like I
some
said, before the
benefit,
school-
but in the same point, we,
Well, if the town of Hubbardston needs help, they should go to the town of Princeton, who their accountant just passed the test. That'd be a better match, two smaller communities, and the impact to those would probably be less than what it is to us, since we have to make cuts.
But it's, like I said, it's.
okay, so that's what's going on with the school budget. Since we all just got this spreadsheet, I don't wanna take the time for us to go over each one right now, unless somebody wants to. I need time to digest it and
Well, that's what I was gonna suggest. I have things that, on here that I disagree with, but.
okay,
I-
and if
I
you'd like
think-
to send questions, we can certainly get questions,
Yeah.
but again,
There's
this
a,
is just a quick snapshot of what
Yeah.
Carter's doing. I don't even know if how much he's coordinated with department heads and what they've said.
because as a follow-up to this, seeing that we just got it. My recommendation would be, and if you want it as a motion, for us to meet next Thursday. The selectmen are gonna meet, we'll have some numbers there. We should be looking at the budget like we just did that one item, to see if there's other opportunities to end up substituting, to end up making those cuts versus the ones that being proposed. I mean, I wanna try to get ahead of the curve here.
Right.
We're not ahead of the curve with the budget the last time.
But without talking to a department head about the impact of what that cut would be to their department,
Yeah, 'cause
personally, I don't like making a recommendation. I don't wanna go to, say, the library and say, they have you cut for 5, but we wanna take 10 from you because, and I'm just using the library, I'm not saying cut the money from the library. I'm a big supporter of libraries. But without understanding what the true impact of any of these cuts are.
and the library is one that, if you cut too much from it, you'll lose the
Right, you'll
state
lose.
certification, and you lose access, that's
Right.
big implications there for
In
that
fact,
little, that little building.
If I recall,
Yeah.
Carter was talking about a way to keep the police officer, for example, was to completely shut down the library and shut down the senior center.
Yeah.
Well, neither one of those are acceptable.
See,
We have
Well, and
seniors-
here
we
he's
have
got
seniors
Meals
that-
on Wheels cut,
Yeah,
or going to completely volunteer in the food pantry, going completely volunteer or being gone.
right, exactly right.
For,
And-
for pennies, in my opinion.
Yes,
In my personal opinion.
I
hate that.
agree,
Yeah.
I agree.
Like-
That's
Because
some-
it doesn't just affect the seniors, that affects the whole community.
That's
Yep.
correct.
But if you watch, like I said, if you watch the selectmen's meeting or watch it over, we'll see that, like I said, these were Carter's, and he
Yes.
gave them to us, the board of selectmen, last night,
Yep.
and said, if you have any other ideas, or you have different things you would like to do,
Right.
Send them to him right away, and
Right.
then
so I think that.
That's why I'm proposing,
We'll have to
we
fight
meet
next
next week,
Wednesday.
look at this so we can end up inputting stuff.
Well, if you wanna look at it over the weekend or whatever, and we can, send emails to Carter to possibly, maybe we'll think of things that they're not thinking of that we could get in front of the Board of Selectmen on Wednesday.
I mean-
We'll hold off to decide whether we can meet next week or not.
And I'm all for that. I think that depending on what the number comes out to be, because if the school committee does go back and they have to, they're redoing this meeting and let's say they come back with a number that might be even a little bit lower.
Or higher.
Or higher.
Or higher.
yes,
That's a possibility too.
it's
but-
all the same or higher.
I think whatever those cuts are gonna be that we have to make, the people are gonna be unhappy, they're gonna hurt.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
are gonna hurt, and then people are gonna be unhappy, but, I think we have to remember that the voters, they voted down the override, and there's only, there's two options, either we raise taxes, which they said no, and now we have to make those difficult
Right.
decisions to make
services.
those cuts, and it's cut to services, and everybody's gonna feel it, and that's unfortunate, so, but
And-
that's the position that we're in.
Chair, if I may also just, besides take all of this other side and just put it on a little end table,
Mhm.
if we get to a district-wide meeting, the school committee can come with a higher number, a lower number, or the same number. Because in 13, when we did this, we went in expecting this number, and the school committee made a amended motion for a lower
That's correct.
number,
Mhm.
which was good news. And we
Yes.
ended up, then we had the choice, when it got approved, we had a choice of either cuts or an override. We went for an override and it passed, but you have to keep that in mind. If we get to that point, and it looks like,
Right.
we may do that,
Right,
it's the same scenario. It could be smaller, the same, or it could go bigger.
right.
Yep.
And I know, in speaking with Carter, a defeat at 71%, he was very not inclined to go for another override, so.
Well,
I
not
don't
that
know.
large.
I
Well, even
don't
that-
even
I
know,
don't
like,
know
any
that-
amount.
I don't think you're gonna get one at all. The people.
I don't either.
People spoke pretty
And,
loudly.
I mean, and look, the Phillipston's mad at them, the town of Templeton is mad, and I don't think you're gonna, if you ask for another override, I think it'd be double worse, cause what part didn't you want to,
Exactly.
I don't think, I'm not saying, definitely don't try it, but I wouldn't expect it to I wouldn't expect it to pass. People
Well,
pretty
if we had done it
smart.
initially, it had a chance, better than what we have.
Again, proposed with faced with the cuts, maybe a little one, maybe, but it's just, but I'd just like you to keep that in mind about the district meeting. We head that way, it can always be smaller, the same, or
Or
it could
higher.
go bigger.
Do you know when they're meeting again, or do you know when there's gonna be a resolution of whether they have to vote again?
I know they're aware of what we're requesting, and now it's up to the school committee. The school committee is supposed to meet next Wednesday.
Okay,
I would like to go, but they were supposed to meet last night, but they canceled their school committee meeting. And I know I requested an agenda and I was told that Phillipston was having a meeting and they wanted the superintendent and the chairman of the school committee there. So they had a big powwow in Phillipston.
One last thing, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that really upset me about this also is the proposed cuts. When you can end up cutting $100,000 from the overlay, that tells me that was fat. It shouldn't have been.
well, Carter addressed that last night, when he talked about what percentage that they use. The recommended, is 2.5%. I think in that case that they did do closer, I don't know the exact number. I think of an overlay as, another word for that is really risk money, for stuff like this, for things, so.
That's for the abatements, by the way.
Right, so they talked about, 1.5% to 2.5% is what he talked about last night, and I think that they kinda erred on the side of caution and went with a 2.5%.
Historically, if you look at it, the historic graph was nowhere near the 252,000, 53,000. It's been in the 150s, 120 to 150.
Well, you know what, in this case, it was a good idea it was, cause now we have $100,000 that we can take from it.
Also,
Well, we could have used it somewhere else, is my whole point.
if I
Wow.
may, the historical data, you go back and look, but you need to consider valuations and what the tax rate was, and the number of people seeking abatements
Right.
and putting agricultural restrict and all that stuff, and more people are doing that because their valuation of their property has gone up, which means their tax bills have increased. So you it's one of them double-edged, you have to have enough money to cover possible abatements, because you don't wanna be short. When people come in and you grant them, and that's the safety net to cover those expenses.
Okay.
So it could explain why it was so high versus the historical data. That's just my thought on that.
So, any other comments on the school budget? None? Next on the agenda is the date for the special town meeting, and then which would consequently be a pre-town meeting. We don't have one yet, so it's kinda hard to set up a pre-town meeting. We may have to act fast on that. But they're gonna need time to get a warrant together and stuff, so I think,
We're supposed to have a warrant on Wednesday, 26th.
so,
We received a draft of the two warrant articles. Yes, we
Yeah.
did.
oh, I haven't seen that.
It's part of the
Came at
email that.
12:30.
It's with that same email
Was that-
that
12:36.
Carter sent.
That's what Carter sent out
Okay.
today.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
I
it's-
haven't gotten through it, I just wanted to look at the spreadsheet very quickly, cause I
Yeah.
know the chairman of the select board sent out a bunch of stuff, and
Yep.
it's hard to read, I don't, he's,
It was
looks
the
like he
same, it was the
scanned
same as what Carter had already sent
Yeah, I
out.
think,
Okay,
so we should have a warrant next Wednesday, but do we need the
What time
legally
is it?
certified number from
12:36.
the school committee for the warrant?
It's,
No,
No?
no, it's kind of to free up the money to pay for the budget that they have in front of you right now, in hopes that you'll have more available in case, to either stay with what they have now, but if it comes back smaller, then you can make adjustments,
Okay.
and put stuff back.
So it starts sort of
As
that
I
112
understand.
process?
Well, the 1/12 is, that's gonna be what the town has to pay for the school budget. What the warrant will be is to actually address the budget cuts.
Okay.
So, and he's trying to do it in a way to cut down on the number of special town meetings, which if you try for another override, that's an election, is another like $5,000 or so, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And every time you have a town meeting, the town council comes out, that's $2,000,
Couple
whatever.
thousand.
Yep.
In 2013, we had 3, I think, an annual town meeting and 3 special town meetings. That's $6,000 extra.
Yep.
We had 5 or 6 one year, and we had, the advisory committee actually had to go to the emergency reserve because we didn't
Sure.
have any money in the budget.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
and that would be a thing
Okay.
to get the
All right,
pre-town
so
done before.
We'll see what comes out of the Board of Selectmen meeting next week, and
I would just respectfully request that if any of you all could make the school committee meeting, I was gonna go, but
and you said that's next Wednesday?
it's, I will check with Sue Varney again and email all you all
Okay.
with the date, but as of yesterday, that's what she told me.
If you do that, just send the email to the advisory committee
Yeah.
email box, and then
We'll all get
everybody will get a
it.
copy of it. I have a rule set up that anything that comes into advisory goes to everybody on the committee. So you don't have to send it to us individually. I got a complaint about duplicate emails.
It was a notation, it was not a complaint.
Huh?
That was a comment.
Well, we were getting everything twice, but
Oh,
I think that was a
Oh,
comment,
sorry,
Mr.
I
Chairman.
probably
It
did
wasn't a
that,
complaint.
Amy.
it was a note. No.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize if your sensitivities were offended.
Very good, Amy.
I think I did that with the notes, sorry.
I was a
What's
note.
that?
I said the purple-haired lady was back, at least in.
In spirit.
Okay, so more to follow.
We'll do that then.
Okay, old business, really the only old business, well, we have not appointed, anyone to capital planning. Is there anybody that would be interested in being on the capital planning committee?
I think you should do that when you
Wow.
have your other member here at
Okay.
least.
Then we can.
He may choose to do that.
Okay, we'll defer that. And then one of the things I had on the old, and which I stated in the beginning of the meeting is, we still need 2 people for the committee. If anybody knows anybody that might be interested.
Well, here's a point, and just as a point of reference, you had stated, because I had stated that it's up to the moderator to make the appointment and go out and
Mhm.
get people. Why would it be our job to go out and get somebody?
I didn't
And
say,
that-
I never said it was the moderator's job to do it.
Well, you said
It's-
you
I-
didn't think it was his job.
Well,
I think
no,
that's.
I don't know that it is. I think
It
that
is.
it's an inter-town thing. Since it's a voluntary position, I mean, the moderator is an unpaid position, so how much time he has to go out and ask people to do this, he probably has as much time as we do. I think his main focus is really to appoint. And that,
Well, traditionally, the moderators have gone out and seek people, by the way.
but we don't know that he's not doing that. It could be that he's doing it and hasn't had any luck.
But on the flip side, we can be doing it at the same time.
Yes, we can.
So, and,
Ma'am?
Moderator, I just wanted to add that the Council on Aging also needs 2 board members. So I'd like to put that on
So,
there too,
so I think there's certainly a need for people of the town to step up and start getting on some committees and try to help the future of this town. It is moving in the right direction. We do take steps backwards once in a while, but we are going in the right direction. I know the 19 years I've been in town, we've come a long way, so,
Could I end up having the chairman write an email or talk to the administrator to take and update the open committee list? Because if you look at the open committee list, it does not state there is any openings for advisory.
really?
Yes.
And also, Mr. Moderator, that handout that was at the town meeting that had pictures on one side and the interest form on the other side.
Right.
Didn't mention that the Council on Aging needed 2 board members.
Oh, okay.
And
Yep.
at our meetings, we always have those forms available and encourage people to apply, but so far, no one has
Where do they
stepped
put
up.
the?
I will send an email.
But it's very difficult because past members of this committee have got disgusted on trying to work budget issues, et cetera, with the executives portion of the government, and they resigned because they didn't feel that it was a working relationship. And I'm talking about all the years that I've been on, I'm talking about, not just in recent. Unless
So the
some,
Council on Aging is in the list, but advisory is not.
no, it is not.
Where is that?
So-
Because we didn't have vacancies till after the election.
And honestly, to be honest with you, this list took about 4 clicks to get down to it. So
Okay.
go down the bottom there, Deb, and then right there, the paid, you click that, and
There
then
you go down.
Board committee.
honestly, I'd like to see it.
And
But
then-
we can put that direct link so that people aren't clicking and clicking and clicking. Like, we can share that, I mean, on our Facebook
Yes.
page, we can,
Mhm.
That is on our page, I believe.
no, I will.
Or it was.
One way. I mean, cause there's
Do
a
you-
lot of
Doesn't
people
take
out
much
there on
to-
social
Do you
media.
have, everybody have editing rights on our Facebook page? Does everybody have them?
I think I do.
I do,
On the
yeah.
Facebook page
Yeah,
or
Facebook.
on
Facebook,
Facebook,
not the
I don't-
website. I'll show you what it looks like.
okay?
Okay, so call for volunteers. I know there's, having 7 people up here is a little, it's just more ideas.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of time. Couple nights a month. Maybe
Well
an extra
spent.
one. Well
I
spent,
mean, if
you
someone
know?
will bring a bag of cheeseburgers, it just gets better.
And then we can put some.
All right.
What's-
Yeah, and you know,
Noted.
there's a lot of people out there
Pass that along.
that have very strong opinions about what's happening. And so I would encourage those people to come be part of the solution.
I actually meant to put a thing in there, hey, we have a meeting, I forgot to do it this time, but I
Well-
try to post when, oh, there's a meeting, we could certainly use volunteers, so.
Yeah,
Believe it or not-
absolutely. And for the Council on Aging as well.
Believe it or not, that was, you state very well, is if you see people on social media, for example, anywhere on social media, and they talk about different stuff, I have gone out and got members from that social media, and we've had some actually get on.
I was
They
actually-
only stay a year or so,
Well-
because they get disgusted, but that's beside the point.
Okay. Okay, so that's old business. Under new business, right now, I don't think we've kind of discussed all the new stuff with the school and stuff. Before we get to member comments, I think well, let's do member comments. Anybody, Amy, do you have any comments?
I do not at this time.
Deb, do you have any member comments?
I think I've covered everything so far.
Well.
You
Yeah,
know
of
I'm gonna
course,
have,
of course.
you know, I
That's why
watch a
you
lot of
relax.
these meetings, by the way,
Yep.
just like a lot of other folks. I watched the selectmen's meeting, and I'm very disappointed in some of our selectmen. To take and end up being a selectman, you end up overseeing the duties of the town administrator. It's not that you have to ask his permission to go off and talk to a department head. We had one selectman do that. Another selectman basically ended up indicating that there was a committee that wasn't doing their job, and I took that as ours. That individual, as far as I'm concerned, shouldn't throw stones at anybody, because if you want respect, start showing up to more than 50% of the meetings and stop asking for money if you don't show up. I'm gonna state it like it is.
So the one person that asked, I didn't think they were asking Carter, I thought they asked the department, or the Board of Selectmen chair if it was okay.
No, they asked Carter.
Did they? Okay.
Yes.
All right, well, that
I
was,
had to listen to that twice.
okay, all right. Anything else? I think we should discuss, our next meeting. One of the problems we have is, our next scheduled meeting is the 4th of July, so we're probably not gonna meet that day. I think with everything going on in the school, having a meeting next Thursday, even if it's a quick one, if everyone's available,
I'm not, I'm traveling, but I could call in if
Okay.
that would,
As long as we have a quorum locally, it's okay.
Oh,
If
they
Will
should
is
be here.
here, will Lee be here?
I think so. I mean, you'd have to ask him for sure to know, but.
Okay. So why don't we, plan on having one Thursday? Jeff, if you could stick around after the meeting and show me how to schedule the room and everything, and how we schedule the TV.
I gotta chase down cheeseburgers.
I'm just.
No, I think she was directing that at me.
I was just teasing. I was just
I'd help
teasing
you, but it's
about the
been a while since I've
cheeseburgers.
No,
Yeah,
Jeff,
I
Jeff,
get it.
Jeff, that's just the one thing. I mean, I've figured out how to, change the agenda and everything, and so because we're not gonna meet on the 4th of July, I would like everybody to kinda, if you can, look at your schedules for the 11th, or.
I would recommend the 11th.
Up through the 15th, in case there is a transfer.
It would be advisable to do it on the 11th, because on the 10th, the selectmen meet, and that would be their last opportunity to make an end-of-the-year transfer. We had
What
that
day?
opportunity
I'm
that.
sorry.
The 11th?
We may not be meeting on the 10th, but.
Well, if you do meet and you make an end-of-year transfer, it will end up, we could end up having it on the 11th. If you do not meet, or you do not have a transfer, it can be canceled.
So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna schedule meetings for next Thursday and the 11th, cancel the one on the 4th. And then on the 11th, we'll decide whether we'll need to meet on the 18th or not.
okay.
Again, depending
Well,
on what's.
those are all potential town meeting dates too. The 15th
they
through the
do a special
18th are
town.
the potential special town meeting dates as
So
well,
if,
so.
if.
That won't happen
If-
because of what's happening now.
That was what we
well, it
received today for
could-
email,
No,
so.
it could
Oh,
still,
it
if,
could.
We
if they
don't
don't
know.
start the clock over.
I'm just saying, yes,
That's-
schedule the meeting, but yes, it could get bumped for
Right,
that kind
so
of thing.
if they do have a town meeting that day, we'll use the 11th as the pre-town meeting, and we'll get the thing to the paper, and, 'cause we should have the warrant, if it's just like they said, so. So I will schedule meetings for, 27 June and 11 July, cancel, 4 July.
Yep.
And then,
You may end up having it on the 18th again, too.
18th of July will be.
Just as
I-
a leave it.
Right, no, I'm not gonna mess with it, and we'll decide,
Yep.
on the 11th whether we'll need to meet, so. All right,
Oh, I have a quick question.
yes.
Is there a certain date after our meeting that I'm supposed to have the notes out?
No, I think as long
No,
as
I think
you
we just-
have them, as long as you have them before our next meeting,
Okay.
you know, with
Is there
ample time to review.
A rule on that, Jeff, do you know? Is there a rule about how quick the minutes are supposed to turn around?
It's either 3 meetings or 30 days, whichever.
We have to review the meetings.
Yeah, I
That's
mean-
when you have to approve them.
Yeah.
Right. So, I
As
mean,
far
we
as
try,
the
we try to do them
Senate,
thing. One of the things I do wanna do, and I noticed on the website is, and I'll, when Lee's back, we'll talk, and Devin, we'll figure out how we get the minutes from most of last year, and then what we've started this year on the website, so people, that was something that kinda, if I can't make a meeting, I used to go and try to look at least at the meeting minutes to see if you could glean something. So,
My government is where most of the meeting minutes have gone.
right, they need to be posted there, but
Yes.
we haven't posted them,
Right.
so, with Lee having copies of all the ones from the past year, I'm really only gonna be concerned with last year, 18, 19, and then we'll going forth, and then try to get them up there so people can see them.
Thank you.
And, everybody good?
I would say that as far as the meeting minutes, as long as, I would think if you had them a day or two ahead of any
The
meeting.
next meeting, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect the meeting minutes tomorrow,
Right,
but I mean, if we have a meeting next Thursday, by Tuesday evening, I would think that would be good, because that would
Okay.
give us that evening and maybe the next, if somebody didn't see them,
right,
the next time, rather than get them the day of.
right, so it gives you a couple days
Yeah,
to sort
yeah.
of look them over before
Yeah.
the meeting.
I think that the timeliness that you gave us now
Okay,
was really good.
okay,
I mean, it gave everybody a chance to.
Yep, that's all I ask, is like a day or two to review them. It's always tough, because, I mean, most of us work, so it's, when Carter sends out those emails, I do try to look at it really quickly when I get home, but it's tough, so.
and if somebody is available to take notes next week, I can definitely call in if you need me to, but I won't be in a great position to note
Yeah.
take. Well, I could watch
We'll-
the meeting though, too.
We'll get someone that's here to do it,
Thank
whether
you.
it's myself or whoever. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion, so accepted.
Seconded?
We're adjourned.
On the,
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll vote.
Yes.
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 Aye.
So I had to take the vote.
No, no.